Thanks, guys, for sitting down and talking with little old me.
He made us.
Yeah.
No, it's a good idea. I think it's a
great
neat idea, and
Yeah.
I think it's you know, you get your chance to ask anything you want.
Yeah, well, actually, maybe it's kind of a selfish question, but I was sort of curious about Scott. Like when did he kind of come into the picture? When did you guys think, oh, we need a young soldier dude?
He was actually one of the first guys we talked about.
Yeah.
I mean, the show.
The first guy, really.
The show was supposed to be about the people who were over their heads and were the fish out of waters.
Yeah.
And you know, we kind of, one of the things that we looked at when we looked at the other shows was that they had gotten to a point where everybody was an expert. They won every time.
Yeah.
They always had the answers, and they were like these superheroes. And we wanted people who would have, you know, dramatic challenges ahead of them. And so to us, it was about creating characters that would be, you know, really challenged by these situations.
Fish out of water.
Yeah, and I mean, Scott's still a trained, you know, military guy.
Yeah.
But
Yeah, it's all in the potential, though, not in the realization yet.
Right.
That's what I remember giving you a note early on.
Yeah, I remember that came up in the
Don't go
interview,
too fast. Don't let him, you know, don't feel like you have to become, you know, the guy who saves it, because we want you to still be that newbie for a long time in the situation. And because the reality is, if you were in that situation, it would take a long time, because it's not like you're getting training.
Exactly.
You know, life and death is the training.
Were there different, I don't know, as you guys were thinking about Scott in the beginning, even before the pilot was written, were there like aspects of his personality or different sides of Scott that kind of didn't end up on the page, or did you guys have ideas about him?
The religious aspect of his character, it's something that it's there, and you're just kind of playing it in your decision making, but also juxtaposing that with the, you know, the desire you have to bed the most attractive women that come across your path.
But Stargate has always dealt with religion, and we thought it was you know, it was something we always shied away from the contemporary
Christian religion
perspectives on religion, and we thought it would be really interesting to. There certainly would be, you know, religious characters who would potentially be involved in the Stargate program, but here they are faced with certain aspects of science that would conflict with those religious beliefs, and how do they reconcile that? Is it an interesting thing that we never really explored in the show before? I mean, even though we were dealing with sort of grand historical religious themes, we never really dealt with people who were literally in the position of kind of, what do I believe?
But I really like how you guys deal with it in a sort of a quiet way. You don't hit that, you know, you don't hit people over the head with it.
Well, I mean, I think that for me, the most important aspects of character should come from their action. That will speak to who they are in any given situation. I think that you know, from the point on of Air Part 3, we may know only certain tidbits about your past, but I think that if you surveyed most people about what Scott would do in any given situation, they would probably get most of those questions right.
Yeah.
And that's what's important, is who is that guy in any given situation? What would he do faced with this dilemma? And I think most people don't realize how much they know about that character.
Totally.
But it also, you know, speaking of character's action, it informs the audience a lot about certain aspects of your personality. When the first time we really meet Scott, and chronologically speaking, you're having sex in a broom closet with another lieutenant.
Yeah. I was going to ask about that too. I mean, it's been a sort of a controversial.
Well, we were talking
scene,
about,
which is great, actually.
Well, people were suggesting it was gratuitous,
which I sort of had a issue with that. I thought it was actually incredibly tastefully, you know, done.
Well, it's not really how it's done. It's the fact that there was a scene that was about two people having sex, and people don't often understand why that's there.
Yeah.
The reason it's there is because it speaks to, you know,
informs the
a decision that he's made.
Yeah.
He knows he needs to be somewhere, and this is more important right now.
Yeah, and it's also, you know, for me, you know, especially when we were shooting the pilot, is you know, these two kind of polar opposite impulses in Scott. You know, he's got this, you know, he's got a sex. Exactly. I think it's something a lot of people deal with. It doesn't make him just sort of a, you know, cardboard Christian character. He's constantly trying to balance these two aspects of his personality or his belief system. It doesn't always add up.
There's two sort of different types of fans. There are people who want their heroes to be perfect because they want them to be ideals that they can live up to. And then there's other people who look at some heroes and say, I like the fact that they're flawed because I know I'm flawed and I can identify better with that.
Yeah.
I think the second case is more interesting.
Yeah.
And more interesting to write and more interesting to watch.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, I like them both, and obviously we do because we've spent a lot of years writing the former. But this is what we're doing now because I want to do this now. It's more right now. It's challenging and more compelling.
But even the way that the show is shot, it seems to ask for that kind of ambiguity
it's all
in the characters.
yeah, it's all.
You know?
Yeah, the style of the show is to in some ways embrace flaws.
Yeah,
we're not trying to be perfect with everything.
Yeah.
It's got a sort of edgy quality. If we get a flare in the lens, we go with it. I mean, everything about it is supposed to be a little more, you know, real.
A spontaneous looking.
Yeah.
Have you guys been surprised about that? I mean, just
It's worked great, and I think that the thing that we don't give enough credit to in terms of the style is how much it's improved performances. Not that the actors we have aren't phenomenal, but I think that everything we hoped for in terms of giving you the freedom to kind of act the scene out has really paid off.
Yeah.
I think that really shows that there's a natural quality to the performances that is really being helped by that.
yeah,
style.
from not having to stand on a
That
sandbag.
And overlaps, and
And
the,
overlaps.
the real dynamic in if you're in two shots and it's dueling cameras, you can do overlaps, and people can interrupt each other and speak on top of each other and overstep each other's lines in a way that people do that people don't understand, that television is an artifice, and that if you do it the other way, you cannot overlap. Otherwise, you're in ADR.
Yeah.
You find moments too. You find these real moments, these little magic things that happen by accident. What you're doing, what you deserve credit for, is setting up the situation for those accidents to happen. It's kind of accidentally on purpose. You're really kind of, setting yourself up to have these magic moments fall into place. Where if you're entirely focused on achieving that, perfection, where you're always lighting it perfect and acting in the box, and the shot has to be this. You just don't have the time and money to make that work all the time.
Yeah, it reminds me of a lot of what we talked about, like when I was in acting school. It's like the difference between letting something happen spontaneously versus, planning what you think that moment should look like. And it seems to be reflected in the way we shoot the show, because you can get some amazing moments and looks and sometimes even angles because it's so open. Things happen you couldn't have planned for. You couldn't have been in a production meeting and said, wouldn't it be great if we caught this flare at the same moment that Young was thinking about his wife?
We do actually.
Are you serious?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, if you sat behind the monitors long enough to know that like that light up there and the end of light, they really wanted a flare right behind him for that moment.
But the great thing about it, though, is it appears to happen completely naturally. It doesn't look like a choice.
But again, I mean, where we found those moments is things like you're in a big scene with a whole bunch of people in the mess hall, and there's two cameras that are kind of roaming around. Everybody needs to be acting all the time. And so this camera just happens to catch that those people had a really wry look on their face while you're saying something. That plays as a great comment on the scene that you might not have gotten had you basically tried to set that up, because you just can't think of all those things. You get this sort of texture that comes from having everybody always performing, even when they're supposedly off camera, because they may not be off camera. They know that they have to be reacting to things.
All the time, because we, 60% of the time we don't know where the cameras are. Which is great. We were shooting something the other day, and Ryan was behind a wall, literally. Those kind of grating things.
That happens. We do a lot of that.
And that's great. I mean, for us, that's gold, because something can be different in a take. Someone can even make a mistake, miss a line, but that reaction can still be
Yeah.
complete gold, because I mean, shots that they actually pick, you
Yeah.
know, the
They're
freedom
finding
that
it.
they get. Yeah.
They're finding it, yeah.
Well, cool. Thanks, guys, for sitting
That
down
was fun,
and
man.
have a little chat
Thank
with
you.
me. Thanks, guys. See you on set.
Yeah.
We'll be back.